Did I go?
No, you didn't. But we are now.
Yes. All right. Excellent. Hey guys, we're back. Welcome back to another episode of the Thriving Coach Business Show. Today we're going to talk about something really interesting, I think, because as coaches, as entrepreneurs, right, we have this love for learning. And today we're going to talk about the dark side of this love for learning, right? Because each strength, right? Anything that, well, let me not make it generic. Like, if we talk about it specifically, right? This is a gift, this is a strength. But if not used properly, if we don't put some rules around it, this can turn into a weakness. And this has happened to myself in the last few years. Maybe you have had some experience with that, right? And really understanding this, right, can make a big difference in your business, right? And yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this has how this impacts people's business. Why this is so important, right? Then we're gonna talk a little bit about. We're gonna give you guys some examples of personal stories, and then we can talk also about the how, right? How do we deal with this? How do we take responsibility for this? And it's not gonna be perfect, but when you understand the game, right, you get a better understanding of the game. You can make better choices. That's gonna give you different results.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I mean, I know like you've kind of started us off and you said you struggled. I have, I think most entrepreneurs have. But if we make this like really personal, like what is one thing that you struggled with, or what's the dark side for you, for the love of learning? Like one thing.
well, the number one, I think I mean, the title says it. There's a love for learning, right? So I love, reading books. I love like doing more courses. I love growing, right? And I think growth is like Tony Robbins talks about it, right? It's one of the 6 human needs,
Mm.
right? It feels good to make progress, right? Progress equals happiness, right? But if it's not intentional, if it's not directed, it's gonna cause problems. So for me, like I've had times where I learned about NLP, I'm learning about sales. On the side, I'm learning about coaching. Coaching has been something very consistent, right? Especially as coaches, we love to learn more and more about coaching. And
Yeah.
it's actually even interesting that sometimes coaches are not even learning about coaching. They're just doing more and more self development, right? So I had to pick that up earlier in my journey. It's like, hey, how many coaching books am I really reading? How good am I as a coach? We
Mm.
spoke about this in one of our groups, right? um, and I see this with a lot of coaches. Even you know, we sometimes we get delusional, right? And I think that was happening to me in the beginning. Like I was growing a lot, reading a lot, listening to a lot of books, right? And it's almost this thing like, oh, I need to like listen to a book a week or read a book a week. And I was just thinking about quantity. Like if I just learn more, if I just you know get to know more, I get better results, and somehow that will fix everything, right? And I think that was happening, and I was always listening to more books, reading different books, and yeah, and I started seeing that actually I'm not growing. My business is not growing at the level I want to grow. What really helped me, right? And this is kind of what really created a shift for me is that I attended a seminar, an event with Ankush and Steve Chandler. And Steve talked about that most coaches go really wide. They spread themselves wide, and they only go like an inch deep, and they go a mile wide, right? And I think that's a powerful way to look at it, right? So most coaches are learning about all these different ways of coaching. I mean, even just if you think about the topic of coaching, there's so much to learn, right? And it's very easy to go from one thing to another. From NLP, this is what I was doing, learning about NLP, positive psychology, three principles, right? And actually, my coaching at that time wasn't that impactful, right? And on the other side, my business is not growing because I'm not putting a lot of attention on sales and marketing, right? So when I learned that from Steve, I just get really more intentional. Said, you know what? Hey, okay, I want to number one focus on becoming really good at coaching. And I think that's another thing, right? That we have to really understand like what is important, right? And I'm not saying like you need to stop learning. That's another good thing, right? If you stop learning, if you stop growing, you're gonna die. Not literally, but you're not gonna stay the same, right? Um, so you need to keep learning, but it needs to be intentional. So for me, like I learned from Steve, like, okay, well, coaching is actually the most important thing. So let me really focus on that. And secondly, realize like, well, without sales, there's no business. So I went to focus on sales, and I focused, I think like around 6 months, 12 months of sales. A lot of sales books, courses, went really deep on that. Got really good at enrollment. So yeah, and by the way, the funny thing is that I don't think this is a problem that you ever solve and you're done with it, right? If you're not intentional, it will keep coming back, especially if you love learning. Because I think what I see, the common thing that I see, with myself, with yourself, I see with our clients, and by the way, these are like what I want really everyone to get here, right? That it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. You could feel a bit embarrassed about it because maybe you're already doing six figures or multiple six figures, but it's normal because this is one of your strengths, right? So I've seen this across new coaches to really established coaches that actually struggle with this. And the thing is, I think if it's not disciplined, it's not intentional, it's very easy to just go from one thing to another, right? But yeah, part of what I want to do is just go into the how to, right? Really give everyone here like strategies, ways, principles to deal with this. But before we do that, again, let's just slow down again and talk a little bit more about the why, right? Because I think when you really understand the why, you'll see how important it is to shift this part, right? Because number one, in business, we don't get paid for what we learn, right? We don't get paid, and I think this is a hard one sometimes to swallow. It's like you don't get paid for what you know or what you're learning, right? We're not like like we're not teachers, right? Sometimes you can bring that into your coaching as part of your program, but that's not actually what you're getting paid for, especially not in the information age where people can find anything on Google, anything on YouTube, right? So number one, that's not what you're getting paid for, right? Number two, right? Execution is key, right? Learning is comfortable, it energizes you, so it's actually easy to go there. And I'm speaking from my own experience and what I see with a lot of coaches is that they go into a lot of learning, but they're not doing the real work, right? And business is maybe growing a little bit, or business is maybe doing 10K a month, 20K a month, but it's not at the level that you want it, right? So that's really important in terms of the why. Number one, you're not getting paid for learning more. Number two, right, execution is really key. You need to take action. Do you want to add anything else? And I'm sure there's more, but I think those are the main ones that come up for me. And I think another one is just it is like if you spread yourself out and you're not intentional, right? You're just kind of becoming like a jack of all trades, and your value in the marketplace is not really increasing. Like there are coaches that have been just learning about NLP for 7 years, 10 years, and they're really, really freaking good at that, and they're known for that. And then the people doing that with three principles, people are doing that with positive psychology, right? They're dedicating almost their life to that, and they get really good at that. And you don't get a chance to do that if you're constantly going from one thing to another thing.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to say. It also doesn't give you an opportunity to ever really gain mastery.
Yeah.
I mean, you love learning, we love learning. But the most important piece of learning is execution, but it's also gaining a level of mastery that's deeper than the average Joe out there in the world. And that doesn't happen by chance. It happens by being really intentional. It happens by continually learning about the same things in different ways. It happens by you implementing and optimizing what you're learning. And it happens by you actually going out into the real world and doing the work, right? And so many times, like, we see people that are like, hey, I haven't really mastered like coaching at a deep level, or I haven't mastered sales at a deeper level, or I haven't mastered marketing at a deeper level. And what it is it's an intention out there, but there's no commitment. Or if you look at what they're actually learning, they're doing things that they think will make them better, and it ticks a box or it gives them that dopamine hit. And I say this even for myself, and probably true for you, gives you that dopamine hit of like, yeah, I feel like I'm growing, but actually it's not contributing to the things that you want to gain mastery in, whether it's your coaching, whether it's how to grow your business, like sales, like you were saying, whether it's marketing. And it almost feels like, well, that's what happened to me at the beginning. It almost feel like going round in circle again and again, where I was like, I should be growing because I'm consuming so much. But actually I was delving, or I had my hand in all the pies, and realized that there was no level of, like, all the flavors were mixed and I wasn't really getting what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's interesting you use the word mastery because I love that. And I think one of the traits of very successful entrepreneurs and specifically very successful coaches, right? They commit to mastery. And I think for some people that word doesn't even come up. And again, this is not criticism, right, or judgment, but I think most people are very delusional, right? Like honestly, like I think when I see, and I've seen this, and this happened, in my first 2 years, right? Like there was no dedication really to like learning marketing, right? There was maybe like surface level, like, oh, let me learn a little bit about it, or I would attend like a little weekend course on marketing, or even sales. I think it was just like surface level first 2 years, right? And I think we just need to ask ourselves that question really, like, how much really do I know about sales? How good am I really at sales, right? And not just like, well, people are not buying because they can't afford it. We make these excuses like, oh yeah, there's tough times, there's economy, there's pandemic,
There's
and
recession.
the, and we're putting, like, when we do that, we're actually just giving away our power, right? Like Taylor talked about this recently one of our mentors talked about this recently in a session. Is like you want to get obsessed with what's in your control. What's in your control is what you learn and how you learn it, right? I mean, it would be crazy if someone goes from like 3 months in one degree and then they go 3 months to another degree and then they go 3 months to another degree and then they hope at the end of the 3 years they hope to be like specialized in something. They're not gonna be specialized in anything, right? And so I think that's really important. And one more last thing in terms of why this is important is overcommitment. If you're overcommitted, right, your impact is less. We've had that, right? We love, we've invested a lot in coaching and mentoring, and even in that way, sometimes we overcommitted us to investing in really good courses. And here's the thing, right? Sometimes it's just not now, right? It's saying like, hey, I recently saw a really good course on emotional intelligence, and I was like, you know what, this looks really good, but not now. Like the next cohort is starting in 2 weeks, right? And I'm like, that's not now. Like I can't commit to that, but I'll put it on my not now list, right? And there's so many things, right? Like I know that I want to do a master's in positive psychology at some point. Maybe do a PhD in performance, right? I want to go deeper in certain things. I want to become amazing at copywriting. But I need to really look at it. When is it going to serve me? This is kind of comes back to the principles, right? is just being very intentional. Map out your next 12 months, not just your next 1 year. Map out your next 1 to 3 years, 1 to 5, 3 to 5 years. And I remember like sitting with students. I used to coach students at the beginning of my coaching journey, and I would ask them like, "What have you planned for the next year, 3 years?" And they're like, "No, I don't know." And I think this is one of the reasons a lot of people choose the wrong degree, right? So plan out your next 1 to 3 years, 5 years. Like, what do you want to learn? At the very minimum, start planning the next 3 months, the next 6 months, right? Be very clear about like what is it that you want to learn, and maybe also connected to skill. What skill do you want to get really good at? If you're like building your business, for example, if you're like in between 0 to 10,000 a month, maybe even 0 to 20,000 a month, like you're building your business to 6 figures, you want to focus on a few skills. You want to focus on getting really good at coaching, number one, for coach, right? You want to get really good at enrollment. You want to get really good at organic marketing. You want to get good at, planning, right? And the fifth thing, right, is getting good results for your clients. You want to create a system for getting clients good results. And we're actually doing a training on each of these five. If we have trainings on some of them already, but we're gonna do some trainings and we're giving that away in our Facebook group. So if you're not in the Facebook group, you can just put a message wherever you're listening or watching this. But those five are key. And if you really get good at those five, here's the thing. I know this is like bold, but if you take action, right, and you get good at those five, you get your business to 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month, right? I think it's like sometimes we get these people share these scary numbers like, oh, it's only 5% of entrepreneurs that ever build their business to 6 figures. It doesn't need to be like that. As coaches, we're not starting a business that's very high risk. But the key is that you're disciplined and your commitment. You have a commitment to learning. This is actually the most beautiful business where your professional and your personal growth can be rewarded, right? Like it's almost like, and here's the thing, right? I didn't want to share this at the beginning, but I have this diagram in my mind. I saw this once in a network marketing event. Is that your professional, your personal growth is in direct proportion with your income. Yes, and only if it's directed, if it's intentional, right? If you get really good at least those three skills, coaching, sales, and marketing, right? And you don't need to learn everything about marketing. You don't need to learn everything about sales, right? It's knowing like, what do I need to learn, right? And then, of course, putting that into practice. And we want to create a feedback loop by having a coach or having a mentor.
Yeah. And something really related to that, and I was talking to our mastery community about this even yesterday, is just recognizing what season in your business you're in. Yeah. And based on that, really mapping out like what am I committed to and what's important for me in this season. Whether that's, of course, you're always as a coach going to be working. Well, I hope every coach is going to continually work on becoming masterful at coaching, because that's the thing that you do. But it's also recognizing like what season are you in? Like what's the timing right now? Because one thing me and you were talking about earlier is what's beneficial at the wrong time is still the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like my example of the emotional intelligence course, right? It is definitely going to be beneficial in my personal life, in my business, right? Work with a team, but it's definitely not the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if like a big part of this commitment to mastery is just being able to honestly evaluate yourself. Like what season am I really in right now? Like what am I truly trying to accomplish? And what are those targets? What are those goals? Right? What does that actually look like? Like, let me see, what does that really look like at the end? What would a successful outcome really truly look like? And then what do I need to create in terms of, the things that I need to master in terms of skill, the books that I need to be reading, the feedback loops that I need to be creating, and really just being honest. Because I think so many times, like you mentioned a couple of times at the beginning, like so many are delusional. And it's just realizing that actually, if you want success, like all the greats, whether, we talk a lot about sports, but all the greats haven't become great by accident. They've been very intentional on like what season they're in, what skill set they're building, what does success truly look like, and they've put in there the practice that needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. And I think something that's connected to that, we often mention this to clients, right? Like, sometimes, like a lot of us, right, we get to a point where we know enough, right? Like, honestly, like, and this is not from a place of ego, but I can stop learning, and we can still like repeat what we did in the last year. Like, we can still create a business that makes $500,000 a year, right? Now, obviously, we don't want to do that, but sometimes what you want to do is instead of stop learning, you want to read a book twice, right? And Steve talks about this, right? Like, read a book once for information and twice for transformation.
Yeah, and actually, something that I say is like I was saying to clients is read it a third time for integration, because I think like you can read for information and transformation, but didn't know, beat you to it.
Yeah.
Time for integration.
Yeah, and you read a book once, right? And it has so much incredible information, and you're like, yeah, you get excited, but maybe just grab a piece of paper, right? And grab a piece of paper and just write down like, hey, what are my insights? What action can I take? What can I put into practice? A great question is just simply like you stop reading, and some books have that, right? You read a chapter and has a little summary, and then ask you like, what action can you take? But maybe just build this habit, build this muscle, like just really think, what can I put into practice? You read a really great sales book, for example, how I went from failure to success in selling, by Frank Bettger, I think, right? And there's so many things there's such a great sales book, and there's so many things that you can put into practice. We have to slow down, right, and really think about what can I put into practice, right? Because learning information is level one, right? But we need to put it into practice, and through practice, we get to transformation. We get to real results. All right. This was, I think it's just number one is a reminder for ourselves. Like we're very intentional about what we're learning now, and by the way, you can sometimes dip in and out into certain books, right? It doesn't need to. You don't need to be completely extreme, but you need to know what your commitment is, right? If you're studying a degree in dentist, I don't know, is it called dentistry?
Dentistry, yeah.
If you study a degree in dentistry or medicine, and you have this little passion or love for, maybe building bikes, you can here and there spend a bit of time. But if you're spending too much time and your degree is suffering as a result of that, right? Hope that makes sense. Let us know what's your number one takeaway from this, and what's one thing you can put into practice right away. Remember, we want you guys to put this into practice. This truly, again, is something that is a gift and strength for us, and has been a weakness for times. And making sure that we, like, I don't know what the right word is, but understanding, like, for me, business is a game, and understanding this game, knowing like how to play the game, it's gonna get you to win. It's gonna make it more effortless, right? And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want you to create more income, more impact, so we have more freedom. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We're gonna see you soon. Ciao. Ciao for now.
Take care, everyone.